Does anybody have a crystal ball to know if the DOE is going to be around in a couple of years after the election? From a grant activity perspective, the Department of Energy has not been kind to fuel cells overall. Secretary Chu has been more focused on wind and solar, although he has not had the best success with all of his investments on that side of the equation. If you're developing technology and you need to do the development work, the expire grant opportunities are still there, but they come in slugs periodically, and you really have to romance people to make sure that it works right. Within the fuel cell space, there are probably more SBIR grants available in the solid oxide space than there are in the high temperature PEM arena. Now, having said that, the next market to focus on is the Department of Defense. And the Department of Defense, I'll pick on the Army for within that segment. The Army has a net zero campaign out right now. And they're very, very seriously looking at ways that they can reduce their energy consumption, both on the battlefield as well as forward operating bases that they're operating here in the States and things along those lines. So there's a very, very active push on that. The New England Clean Energy Council is actually bringing people down from New England to visit with them next Thursday in Washington, D.C. and to run a session on that. Next week is a Tactical Power Summit also in Washington, D.C., which is focused in on alternative energy technologies on that. Grant opportunities, they're there, they work, they can help drive a company. They only go so far, though. You can only do so much with it. You really have a difficult time commercializing off of just a grant opportunity. You can get your research done on it, but start looking at the Department of Defense in that arena. I have not found much success within the states themselves for grant opportunities. I mean, certainly Connecticut is probably one of the people more in the front that I read about that is doing things where they're citing fuel cells and contributing that way in terms of purchase activity. Massachusetts has not done that yet. New York has the NYSERDA program. I'm going to put a plug in for the NEESC on that. I hope you don't mind, Joel, if I get into that. But the NEESC has been quietly talking to all of the states through the various spokesmen, and we'll be putting together within the next several months. We hope that be the first time a meeting where we'll have New York, Massachusetts, Connecticut, Maine, and Vermont all at the table at the same time to chat with them about their perceptions of the fuel cell space and how they react to that and what they want to see from us as fuel cell companies. And then expand that meeting to one that would involve the fuel cell OEMs and that to try and get a more global feel for things. As we took a look at the supplier base on the grant opportunities side, UTC and various Connecticut folks do a lot of business in the Holyoke-Springfield area. So $1 spent in Connecticut, 15 cents or 20 cents of it flows across the border. For $1 spent in Massachusetts, X amount of that comes back into Connecticut. There's a real regional cross-border relationship to the supplier dollars going back and forth. And we're going to try as a group and capitalize on that and put some things in a grant opportunity that way. So that's something to look forward to in the future. But the SBIR and DOD are the ones to go for today. As you're creating your value proposition, you don't want your value proposition to be based on grants, rebates, and tax credits because they go away. And your strategics and your venture capital folks and even some of your smarter angels are looking at it saying, is your value proposition based on grants or tax credits, and when are they over? So you really need to build a stronger value proposition that's net of all that other stuff.
I would agree wholeheartedly with that point. One program that was very helpful that I found was very well structured was the ARRA, American Recovery and Reinvestment Act, Section 1603. That was a tax credit, and as you basically apply through the Treasury Department, and there's a list of forms and disclosures, etc., that have to be made. But what I really liked about it, it wasn't a beauty contest where your application is sent off and it's a competitive bid against 5 others, and someone just happens to perhaps know a senator or someone else in the DOE, and they can put the name in. etc., you end up at the bottom of the pile, but the Halliburton buddy or whoever it may be ends up at the top of the pile, where this is a straight tax credit, or was state tax credit, and tax credit, excuse me. Found that to be a much more straightforward process. It was well documented, and you could predict to within a couple of weeks of when the money was coming in, what the requirements were, and that level of security, that level of certainty, excuse me, adds security to the company and to the investors, and gives us a little bit more peace of mind that with they had a 60-day pay. Once the application was received, there was 60 days that you would have an answer, and there's not much out there that you know you're gonna have an answer on 60 days, good or bad. This whole process after that fact, but that was probably one of the best examples that I've seen. The application process that we saw at the beginning of the called the second stimulus package in 2009, where there was a lot more, like I said, the competitive bids. Those were more of a crapshoot for small companies, less politically plugged in. So from our point of view, I definitely like something that's much more anonymous and across the board, rather than waiting for a competitive bid process.